Let's get into our guests joining the conversation in a bit, or in fact, right now. Amanda Clinton is head of chambers at the Clinton Consultants, and we also have Wanda Madilo. He is with the NDC's communications team. Shortly, we'll also have joining the conversation Victoria Bright, if you want to put it fully. She's a lawyer, entrepreneur, and a former legal advisor to former President Kufuor. But let's come into the studio. Lady, gentlemen, good morning. Another week has started. We're going to hit the ground running. Quick thoughts on anything on your mind in about a minute and a half. I'll start with you, Amanda.
Just that I think I want to commend the finance minister for the appreciation of the Cedi, as well as the imminent release of, $370 million IMF, and furthermore, I think it's written on the wall for not only the Chief Justice, but, the Electoral Commissioner, in terms of what's been unfolding the last week or so. But I think in line with President Mahama's aim of at least 30% female, it would be good if the next Electoral Commissioner and CJ, if that's the case, are female. And thirdly,
based on what are you...
No, if they're excellent, I think that Mahama
I'm saying
failed
based on what are your suspicions hinged that the CJ is going and that the EC boss is going?
I think the writing's on the wall. We can get into that later.
The writing
on the show.
is on the wall, huh?
Yes, the writing's certainly on the wall. But and then thirdly, Sammy Gyamfi's gift. It is.
We're touching on that this morning.
Yes, it's really nice to be generous, and I think he was just doing it out of generosity. However, with Mahama's May 2025 Code of Conduct, it didn't go against it. However, such actions could be interpreted as conflicting with the code's principles, especially if they're seen as undermining the national currency or suggesting a lack of confidence in the local economy. But I think it was just a goodwill gesture. But, perhaps in future the optics could be better observed.
All right, thank you very much. Wanda, why did you wince? You had a look on your face when I said we were going to take a look at it.
I was wondering why that is a national topic. I felt it's a bit private. Yeah, the individual involved may be a government functionary, but of course we all do have our own ways of showing affection, care, sympathy, and empathy towards society. So I didn't think that it would come up, on a discussion like this.
Let me just interject before you proceed. I don't know whether you will talk about it. You will have to talk about it.
We will talk about it. Right?
But just a quick thought. I may forget.
Yeah.
If the NDC had been in opposition, let's put ourselves before election 2024, and you had seen a public official. Sammy is someone I know very well, and I know his ethics and all of that. But the optics didn't look good in this, display of, not even, I'm sure even some people would have pardoned it if it had been the Ghana cedi. The fact that it was apparently American dollars made some people think, wait, we're making gains and some people are supposedly, would you have been talking the same way you're talking now?
Well, this is largely based on conjecture, that if we were in opposition, well, who knows? Let's be very fair, There have been times where we've seen public officials, visibly throw money at the crowd and all that stuff. And so, for me, whether we're in opposition or in government, the position is the same. Sammy himself has issued an apology.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, which is a good thing. So that's why I didn't think there would be a topic for discussion. Whoever
wait, you think because he's apologized, it's not worth discussing because
Ghana has
he's apologized, we should just gloss over it, and there are some people who are calling for his head.
Well, opinions. They're like noses. Everybody has one. We're all entitled to one. I think that Sammy did not commit a crime on this occasion.
No, he did not.
He tried to help somebody who actually asked for help. You may be talking about the currency, maybe talking about what quantity, I don't know any of those details. What I know is that he was generous enough to have given to somebody that already has a lot of, quote-unquote issues.
People have asked,
public domain. So
even apart from the issues, I grant that some people have asked, and I read a lot on these things. People send the videos to me with so many comments. I can't get through all of them, but the number of people who send this, and some would say, okay, so but if you're giving to the needy, I grant that, Mama Pat, some people feel she's not exactly a needy person.
Yeah, I do agree. That's why I'm saying that all this conjecturing, all this trying to put in perspective and all that, people are entitled to all of that. Sammy himself has come out openly to say that he's sorry. He thinks that he would have been a little bit more careful the next time and all that. So I'm at a difficulty speaking to an issue that the center of the discussion himself has acknowledged some error and has apologized in that regard. That's why I don't want to. What else do you have to say when the man at the center of the controversy says?
I mean, I respect Sammy for the apology. These are things that not too long ago people would unashamedly, unabashedly do and maybe have nothing to say about. But beyond that apology, I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. Imagine the fact, for example, how do you reconcile? And after this, I'll not pose any questions to you on that. I'll come to Vicky. How do you reconcile the code of conduct that President Mahama gives his appointees just a few days prior? And he's hammering on, declare your assets. He's hammering on, even if you're taking a gift not in excess of 20,000 cedis, which some have said is even high, and all of that. And then this happens. It just doesn't go with the flow, does it?
Optics.
Chief, what has happened?
The optics, like we said, is not a crime. It's not that he's committed any, but the optics. You know that based on those optics in other jurisdictions, people, face problems.
Yeah, so I agree, and I'm saying that what has happened has happened. The man at the center of the controversy says, "I am sorry." He thought he could have been a little bit more cautious or careful in his, magnanimity towards the woman. The woman herself has also done some video to say that she asked for the money and all that. So if he didn't give, it would have been a problem. When he gave to, it's a problem. I understand the sentiment and all that. Earlier we tried to put this aside and move on, the better for all of us, because I know many other appointees, including individuals like us, are all learning from what has happened.
Indeed.
And I think that we will serve this country a lot of good if we all learn going forward and to quickly put this behind us and concentrate on the much bigger issues.
Okay. Let me bring in Vicky Bright. That is, if you have any thoughts on this matter, have you seen the video?
No, I haven't seen the video.
Okay, so we're actually showing that video with the exchange. And my surprise in there was the fact that I saw phones and cameras and all of that, which would suggest that you see that, look, people are holding phones and all of that. You probably should be a bit more careful, because I saw, even if you were going to be this magnanimous, and I don't have any problem with that, but you see phones, people are holding, you should, because you could see someone was filming from this angle, which meant that it was so obvious, I mean.
But the code of conduct doesn't actually explicitly prohibit the gifting of foreign currency, you see. But the issue that might come up... It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. But the issue that might come up ultimately is, can it be interpreted as, undermining national currency or suggesting a lack of confidence in the local economy? That's the issue. But in fairness to Sammy Gyamfi, I really do think sometimes people are given that much in terms of that level of responsibility because maybe they're generous people. You know what I mean? When you're a generous person, it comes back to you in getting a good position and different things like that. So you keep on giving because that is what, we were brought into this earth to do, to be generous and to prosper. Do you see what I mean? And so maybe optics-wise, he could better handle that in terms of coming from a communication background, which he now does, given his former position within the NDC. Optics-wise, it could have been better, but I honestly think that being a generous human being to everyone is what leads people to success in life. And perhaps this is just an example of that.
Wanda, I still see you. I'm coming to you, Vic. I see you fretting a bit, fidgeting a bit, looking at me a certain way. Let me make this clear. And I have said it to many of my people in the political sphere. Sammy and I enjoy a pretty good relationship. I could even call it a friendship and all of that. But if I deem it not right, I will not hide it. And I believe it's a learning curve for Sammy Gyamfi. We are discussing it today. Tomorrow, we shall move on. But today, we shall discuss it. Vicky.
Yes, I agree with you. I think it's a learning curve. I think it's an indiscretion. It was a mistake. It's unfortunate. And as you said, against the backdrop of what President Mahama is trying to do with this code of ethics and similar, I think the timing is also not the best. But he has not committed any crime.
No.
I think we're all agreed on that. And I think we should accept his apology because, look, nobody is infallible. And so Sammy has apologized. I think we should accept the apology in good faith and we should move on.
We should accept it and move on.
We should accept it and move on. And I think he himself should grow as a result of this. I mean, he's now entered government for the first time. And there are going to be many lessons along the way. So I'm sure he would have learned a lesson from this. And he'll grow as a result. We all learn from our mistakes and we become better people. And so I think he should, we should just accept the apology and move on.
Wonder we should move on. Wanda is telling me to move on. When you do that, you prompt me to stay there. don't do that. You make me stay there. Someone sends in a message and says, but is this not the same Agrada who was insulting President Mahama back then?
So that brings another discussion in focus. So you see, majority of the uproar even was internal. I can tell you for a fact that internally people were more agitated because they felt, we've been in a position for all this while. We just came back, and this woman who was a thorn in our flesh virtually, insulting the then candidate, John Mahama and all that. You didn't need to extend that. So these are all the issues. You wouldn't have heard about all this anger in the system if it was not backed also by internal, uproar. Agrada took a decision on her own because of her godfather, as it were, Reverend Osuwempa at the time, who had declared that John Mahama wasn't going to win the elections. And so she went on and on and on and on and on and on. And we all saw, but you see, the posturing of President Mahama speaks a lot in volumes. And all the people who work around him now knows that nobody's an enemy. It was a campaign season and she was all over the place. Campaign is over, elections are over, we have won the elections, we make progress. And we've brought everybody on board. We try to have an open system and a more, engageful system than apprehensions that you would have expected. That's why you will see some of this happen. And then she also did a video and said that she had given her house to us when we were doing the campaign to use as whatever and whatever and all that. So in the midst of all this, we're very grateful that Sammy Gyamfi himself has learned his lessons and we can make quick progress going forward.
All right, let's get into the papers now. Vicky, did I take your thoughts beyond this? Was there something else?
No, not yet. On this matter or the general thoughts?
I mean, your
morning?
general thoughts before we get into the papers.
Oh, yes.
Once we go there, we're not coming back.
Yes. I was very disturbed, actually, to read about maternal deaths. The focused person in the Eastern region responsible for maternal care has made some very revealing proclamations, and which are very disturbing, that we've lost 18 mothers just between January and May this year, and most of them have been in prayer camps. So I think it's important that we educate our mothers, especially the very young ones, to understand that sometimes you may need medical intervention during childbirth. Childbirth is a very I guess women, we know what it's like, and men who have been there when their wives are giving birth, you know what it's like. It's not easy. And anything can happen. So it's important that you have the right medical care if, God forbid, something happens. And there has to be some accountability in these prayer camps. you know, we're all Christians or Muslims, we all have our faith, and we cannot allow certain things to happen hiding behind that faith. So for me, that's very important, and we need to tackle that. 18 deaths, I mean, that's just unacceptable.
All right, thank you very much. Let's get into the papers very quickly. And at 7, we're going to be having an interaction. So just stay tuned for that. We're going to be hearing from the business community. I'll not tell you whom we're going to be interacting with, but just in a bit. Keep your fingers crossed. Amanda, let's start with your paper.
Yes, I've got the Ghanaian Times, and headlines include Cosmos Energy pledges 2 billion investment, and the finance minister pledges to sustain the Cedi Appreciation, as well as a unit that's very dear to my heart, which is the human trafficking unit at CID headquarters, was able to secure 2 Ghanaian women trafficked to Nigeria, returned to Ghana. But Cosmos is huge in terms of, you know, a 2 million investment for upstream operations in Ghana. And the Minister of Energy says that this landmark investment by Cosmos Energy, combined with the government's commitment to reform, signals a new chapter in Ghana's energy narrative, one rooted in transparency, collaboration and opportunity. The minister also called on global investors to explore the growing opportunities within Ghana's revitalized energy sector. So that's like a $2 billion investment, which is probably going to be well received in Ghana. Okay.
Any other stories you'd like to get into?
Well, the U.S. Embassy cautions against visa fraud. For instance, I think the one of the people speaking for the U.S. Embassy said that paying so-called fixers who claim they could secure a U.S. visa for a fee is a real hindrance. And they also revealed that out of 61,000 visa applications submitted in 2024, only 25,000 was approved. But, you know, visa fraud is a huge thing. So if we curb more of that, maybe more visas will be approved, basically.
I mean, you don't know that for sure. And there are also the statistics about how much these visa fees accrue. I think I saw $10 million somewhere on the back of last year. And people also raised the comments about, look, if someone applies and you take away the other fees that maybe you may charge for the process, the rest of the money, can it be handed back? I mean, it's a genuine conversation people have spoken about, because if you're making $10 million from visa charges alone, if you deduct whatever minutiae may be for the process proper, the rest of it, where is it going? Is it? Do you get what I mean? Mm-hmm. That is, in other words, foreign exchange leaving Ghana, if you quantify it in dollar terms, for something that you may not have benefited from. So there's that question as well. I see it's not exactly a subject you.
For me, the bigger question is, why are so many people comfortable giving money to fixers as opposed to lawyers? And then they approach the lawyers. I mean, I'm approached lots of times after it all goes wrong, and someone they semi-know and the office is closed down. You know, they want to get that $10,000, $15,000 back from. Do you see what I mean? So at first instance, it is for the applicant to do a bit of due diligence and just go to a lawyer first, because, you know, fixers are just kind of like trying to use the system in order to just make money.
But people could also just go through the process on their own, you know what goes into it and go through the process.
Well, not necessarily.
You may need guidance, but I mean...
No, I mean, we do a lot of appeals, and appeals that are successful, and it's normally because the applicant misses a point in terms of showing that they definitely they're definitely going to return,
right, and
proof of that, etc., etc. So going to, you know, good international lawyers will help you along the journey.
All right. Wanda?
Yeah, so follow up to that. The figures you quoted, the 10 million and all, is not right. Just on the face of it, it's 61.
I saw that somewhere.
No, I'm saying that, no, you hear that, you know. I'm actually going to mention a higher figure. So yours is even less.
No, I'm just saying that is what I saw, at least on our platform. I saw something of the
All
sort,
right. So
which is what I have on the top of my head. That's
okay.
what I
All right. Okay. So 61,000. Even if you use the basic, which is $185 per person, is 11 million. And there are visas that are going for 600, 315, and all that. So they make more than that. And maybe we should just be looking at what we can glean from that as a country. Now, President Mahama urges to stop mining in forest, reserves and all that. I'm told that there is a.
I just wanted your reflections on that story before. I've not come to your page.
Oh no, I thought. Oh, okay.
Vicky, do you have any reactions to the story she's done?
Not beyond what I mean. The Cosmos story is interesting because our upstream sector has suffered quite, significantly. Exxon exited, ACA, are barely doing anything here, and so it's and tallow is also not as it used to be.
Right.
So our upstream sector is really suffering. And so I'm very heartened to hear that 2 billion is going to be pumped into it to kind of give it a breath of life again.
What do you think about the visa applications and the appeals? I've met people, and I know people who genuinely, they are not going to some of these countries to go and stay or do anything. They are, and yet their applications are turned down, sometimes first time, second time, third time. It's maybe later that they get it. And they are practically just going there for some specific purpose, and they're coming back, and yet they keep getting rejected. What do you think about Amanda's point?
Getting lawyers involved. I mean, I think that, if you can afford it, because not everyone can afford that. But of course, if you get legal guidance, it's going to minimize your chances of getting rejected, or if you're appealing, it's going to help you to represent your case in a more meaningful way. These visa rejections, application rejections, I have problems with some of them because I kind of feel that I think it's a question of respect. I just kind of feel that our countries are just totally disrespected sometimes. I'm not saying all the time, but they are disrespected. And there's this blanket assumption that if you apply to go outside, it means you are so desperate to stay there. And as you said, Ben, not everybody is desperate to stay outside. People just want to go and see something, maybe the Eiffel Tower or whatever, or Big Ben, and come back home. Spend a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks outside and come back home. So it is, it's total disrespect sometimes. I mean, blanket just saying no. And I mean, I've met people who actually have boasted about the fact that they've turned down so many hundreds. On the other side, of course, visa, processors who have said in embassies who have just boasted that, oh yes, it was terrible. Hey, when I was in South Africa, I turned down so many. When I was here, I turned down so many. As if they are doing some huge service to their nation. And I always call people out on that. I think it's disrespectful. And so sometimes these applications are not given the proper consideration. They look at it and it's like, no. And I'm in Nigeria and other places, you have waiting lists, sometimes 2 years.
Yeah. It's
crazy.
It was beginning to happen in Ghana, I think, as of last year.
I mean, a 2-year waiting list. Just for the interview. Just for the interview.
Exactly.
I haven't
I've not personally had these, but sometimes the things that people tell me, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
Then you look at the caliber of person, you look at what they do and all of that, and the person insists,
this is it.
I'm not going to do anything there, and yet they keep getting turned down.
Someone substantial in their own country, someone who's, who probably has a business or has a job that's, a substantial job, and but you just make those blanket assumptions.
There's a subtlety because, I mean, I've actually dealt with a lot of the appeals, like some of the appeals that come to me. And for instance, I'll give you an example. There was this lady, she worked in a pretty good ministry in terms of very well paid. And she was literally, she ran to her office as soon as she was rejected because, she'd proven that she'd gone to, I think, the US before, but still she was rejected for the UK. So she didn't understand because everything on her paperwork was fine. But I could sense by looking at her application, for instance, that she was in her 30s. She wasn't married. She didn't have kids. She was a master's graduate. So ironically, that, in just reading all of that, I thought, well, if I was sitting there as an immigration officer, I think this person hasn't got any, ties per se, well-educated, etc. Maybe they won't come back, blah, blah, blah. So in writing the appeal letter, it was to go that extra step and to emphasize that, well, she had been to the US before and returned, and the fact that she's really happy with her job and this is the address she's going to, you know what I mean? So little things like that help. And she got it. And she got it.
You don't get to explain all of these things
you don't.
when you're there. And you see, these are discretionary decisions
that is
are
it.
made. And let's face it, there is some disrespect. You remember when the current American president back then referred to certain groups of countries as certain countries.
In fact,
you remember
all the African states, isn't it?
I can't say what he said. But I think sometimes there is that disrespect, because if you go to other jurisdictions, they may have similar things, but they will not go through these strenuous. If you are above 30 and you have all of those things, true, it could be that you're going to go and not return. But is it necessarily the case-by-case basis? You mentioned where she was working and all of that. I think those should hold some consideration.
And
we
also,
have to move on, but I see this is so very brief.
I just wanted to add that I can see Amanda's point, but if you are looking at this application and you apply it in that way, it's a little bit simplistic, because why would someone with all those qualifications want to be an illegal immigrant? How are they going to benefit from those qualifications? Yes, I mean,
she got the visa and she returned actually afterwards.
Yes,
but sometimes
it doesn't. That's actually all the more reason why you should give her the visa, because she's not going to compromise all of that to go and clean somebody's office outside. I mean,
at some point in my life, I've been involved in, helping people secure visas. The biggest challenge is that people are not patient to fill the form.
Legally or
legally? Oh, no, I'm talking about legally.
Okay.
This comment you just made about the lady, and she's been, maybe even when she was asked, have you traveled in the last 5 years? She didn't even take her time to fill all those details. Sometimes there are genuine cases of people.
Sometimes there are errors.
Yes, errors in your forms. Indeed. And you may not have the opportunity to rectify that.
Okay.
And then they talk about fraud too, don't forget, of people trying to buy, bank statements and place of work and all that. So there are many varied reasons. But of course, the disrespect is very loud on the plate.
All right, Amanda, I know you've had quite a take on this. So let's move the conversation forward. Let me bring in GUTA's president, Dr. Joseph Obeng. We're bringing him in because of that charge in recent times. GUTA saying adjust prices with immediate effect, that is GUTA, to traders as the cedi has strengthened, especially against the dollar, but also against other major currencies. Dr. Obeng, good morning. For some reason, I can barely hear you. Good morning, Dr. Obeng.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure having you join the conversation. Why is GUTA making this call?
We have to act in good faith. We have obligation to do that. Now the dollar has come down significantly, and we have to share the gains with the consuming public. The business that we do not do it in isolation. We do it with the consuming public. The business we do lies on turnover, and that if the consumer is unable to buy because of high prices, it also kills our business, our ability even to turn over, be able to pay the banks and all that. So it is in our own interest that prices come down so that we can do a business where the purchasing power of our consumers has been enhanced. This is what we have to do. It's a moral right, and I believe our people will adjust prices to that effect, because much as we want to recoup some of our losses during the past couple of years, it is also only fair that we transfer some of the gains to the consuming public.
Now, this for most Ghanaians would be a wonderful call, but let's face reality. The exchange rate may be more favorable now, but beyond that, inflation has only come down by a very little percentage. Some of the other metrics in the system, fuel prices, yes, maybe some stability in there. But people can also, traders can point to other things and say, look, we've not, we don't have a perfect system. Why should we not get what is due us? And if prices fall, or if the exchange rate gets much better, then we can take it there. How do you react to such people?
You see, the factors of pricing varies. And then the major factor, one of the major factors is the exchange rate. The way the rates have gone down is quite significant. You see, when we are paying duty, it's benchmarked with this same dollar, and we are saving something from the duty payment, and then we also save something when we are exchanging this money. So definitely we have some gain, even though that's why we also call on the government to reduce on certain things. But then also when we show good faith like this, then we can also go on government and hold him that you have to do this, and then use this as a reference. Because if we are able to do this and show good faith, then government will also listen to us on other things, especially with regards to electricity bills. I've been talking about it. There was no justification for us to increase the ECDA bills. The PURC did not do a good job, especially when the exchange rate is coming down, because they cited the exchange rate as one reason for increasing the ECD. Otherwise, these are some of the things that is going to negate the gain. For us, we are appealing to our members, but as you said, there are other costs regarding calculation of our prices.
Right.
And so we have to look at all those things comprehensively. But then we want to show good faith. And then, because this thing that I'm saying is even very tricky, because there are some people who are still here to adjust, because maybe they bought their goods at the old rate and they are yet to settle. But sometimes we have to strike reasonable averages so that we can remain in business. Our market is not a monopolistic one, where one business person will say that because I have the goods, I can increase my price anywhere. Ours is a liberalized, highly competitive one, where one particular item you see about 2,000 people selling it.
Right.
If you do not adjust your prices and you overprice yourself out at this particular time, you overprice yourself out of the market.
Okay.
Especially if your goods are perishable and all that.
All right.
So the prudence here is for you to adjust to the trend so that you can still remain in competition. Yeah, so we are just appealing.
Right.
But then the reason why people cost is varying, and that you cannot actually force anybody also on that.
Dr. Bing, two things I just want you to quickly leave us with. One, there also are those who say, I imported my products into the country. The exchange rate was at a certain point. It's only in recent times, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the fall, especially as we see it now, has taken effect. For such people, if they say, look, I can't justifiably do this now because I'll run into a loss. No one does business to lose. That's one point. How do you react to that? And the other point is the executive director of ISA, the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Peter Quartey, calling on government to adopt policy measures that will help regulate the prices of food items on the market. Some have said price regulation. Can we do that? What do you think about these 2 points? And we can say
not even the socialist countries can do price control. That method is obsolete. It doesn't work.
Okay.
Nobody can actually control the prices of which people sell their goods. You see, what I'm doing is just appealing to our members and urging them so that the consuming public will have the confidence and trust and faith in us. So that next time when we say that prices are high because of these factors, they will trust us. That's all that I'm doing. But we cannot tell anybody to reduce his or her price. It doesn't happen. And when you do that, that one bring the shortages of goods. Because if you give price that is not competitive to me, I will not go and bring the goods. If government have to control prices, then government have to bring the goods himself.
Okay.
And then put a negligible difference on it, or even subsidize his own self and sell to the consuming public. But we are business people. We sell, we do business for profit, and that nobody can price goods.
Quickly on the point of those who talk about.
Obsolete. It doesn't even exist in the socialist says who used to do those things. You remember during the Champion regime, where this price control induced smuggling, and then what we call kalabule and other things, hoarding and all that. It's not the best of things to do.
All right. The other bit about those who say, look, I imported at a certain exchange rate, I can't sell it at a lower price. What would you say? Quickly on that.
Yeah, they are right, especially those who are even in the market. Let me tell you how the market works. We have the retailers. They do not have anything to do with this exchange rate because they fall on the importers. The importers are the ones who have direct benefits with the or disadvantage with the exchange rate fluctuations. And so once this thing has happened, the importers, especially those who are now buying their goods, who are paying their old debt and all that, they are all going to benefit, and they will be able to transfer these gains that I'm talking about. But the retailer who does not import directly, he has already bought the goods, and the dollar does not even affect it. So the person have to sell off some of the goods before we can go to the supplier, the importer, to go and buy the goods again.
Right.
And so this is complex, and that's why most times we said that prices will adjust by itself.
Okay.
Because of the competition that we have, and because there are so many people in the market, we say that we have the consumers. The market that we have is a consumers market. It's not the sellers market. So you, the consumer, have to exploit the market, find where the prices have been adjusted, and reward the person, and punish the person whose price is still high. Okay. And so, in that regard, I always appeal to my members that in situations like this, you have to strike in reasonable averages. The prices that you got at the old price, the ones that you got at the new price, have some reasonable average and sell it so that you do not overprice. Because if your goods get longer to sell, you are unable also to pay or service your debts at the bank. Right. Yeah. So it's appeal and we are education that we are doing.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining the conversation, Dr. Obeng. We're grateful for your time. That is Dr. Joseph Obeng. He is president of GUTA, the Ghana Union of Traders Association. Let me come into the studio and take your quick thoughts, if you have any, on this bit before we get into the next stack of papers. Vicky, would you like to have a bite on Dr. Obeng's position?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, the last point that was made about if someone has bought something at a particular exchange rate, then clearly they cannot sell it below, because if they do that, their business is going to collapse. Of course, we welcome the strong exchange rate, the strengthening of the cedi at the moment, and government needs to do whatever it can to maintain that position, because there are, yes, government has played a part in it, by managing our public expenditure in a better way, etc., etc. But there have also been some externalities which have helped to bring about this position. We all want to see our grocery shopping prices go down. And so I think that they will have to, I guess if they sell this latest batch of goods, they will have to now toe the line, because they are very quick to increase prices.
Right.
Very quick to increase prices when the exchange rate goes up, or when there's a fuel increase, or anything that has a direct knock-on effect on their pricing. They are very quick to pass it on to us. So the opposite should also hold true.
They must be very quick to lower as well when the times are favorable.
Absolutely.
Wanda?
Well, I support their call, but we want it a bit more urgent. Why? Because they're just going to wait again when there is an increment. Then with the windfall they've made right now, nobody gets to benefit, and then they are increasing again. So I would think that some urgency would benefit us all. Again, I also hope that this will be sustained in the longer run. Say,
what will be sustained? The surge of the CD?
No, the CD's stability at this moment. It's not just the going down. We want it to be stable. You see, even if it's going down every other day, it also doesn't help in pricing. But if it comes to 13 and stops at 13, and you're able to plan within that, it helps even government itself in its entitled commitment to our international partners and trade and all that stuff. So indeed, the finance minister is doing very well. The Bank of Ghana, in collaboration with the finance ministry, they're doing very well.
Thank you for those thoughts. Quickly, Amanda.
I think a lot of businesses have existing inventories bought at a higher rate. You know what I mean? So if they lower it, it's definitely going to go against them. So that wouldn't work if they have an existing inventory.
Okay.
And furthermore, we do commend the finance minister and, hope this lasts. But if it doesn't, it could be a temporary nature of the CD's strength. You know what I mean? So to make such drastic actions and not know, it takes a month or two to see if this is where it's really going in terms of maintaining the CD's strength. You see what I mean? So we shouldn't have such drastic trade actions, and perhaps just like structural economic reforms in general is a better way to address this, basically.
Right. Let me do Wanda. I know Amanda did it, so let me come to a gentleman. Quickly on with your papers.
My papers. Forest mining ends now.
You want to start from Sankofa. That's the paper you have now.
Yeah, I have Sankofa in front of me. Forest mining ends now. Mahama moves to permanently ban all mining in reserves. I think there's been talk about the LI and the Mining Act itself. You see, the LI...
What's happening to it?
The LI is only giving oxygen to the Mining Act, largely. And so what the president seeks to do is, first of all, go after the Mining Act itself, resolve the issues, and then come to the LI. And I know that is in progress, I'm told, and that Parliament has started some work.
You're told. When the promise was made about LI 2462, I'm sure you are aware of the Minerals and Mining Act as well. When the promise was made in terms of doing away with LI 2462.
No, that's not the debate right now. That's not the debate. We're talking about a holistic solution to our mining challenges. Mining in forest reserve, washing off into our river bodies, and the knock-on effect that we have in terms of the health challenges. So the president is taking a more holistic approach. Yes, we did promise that we'll repeal the LI, right? Right? You agree? We did that.
I mean, it's not in dispute, so that's why everybody knows it.
Yeah, so we are 4 years in office, and I'm saying that there's a process, and that process has begun. When the president was talking to the 120-day promise, he specifically said that would be...
I was just about to go there, because there were some timelines as well in respect of...
That will be taken care of. There's no fears about that. If I promise 120 days and I've delivered up to 90% of my promises...
In the end, we just want LI 246.
Why the fear? The LI,
that's the bottom line.
That will go. It's not a problem at all. And so I think that is in order. I'm told that WHO supports Ghana's Ministry of Health. I think that the Ministry of Health is going through a lot of challenges. A lot of suppliers have not been paid. They are debt reading and all that. So some of these supports are very welcome. A healthy nation is a wealthy nation. And so we are expecting that some of these things go through as quickly as possible. The GUTA issue we have already touched on. And then I'm told that some 3 students of UDS are turning tomatoes into opportunity. I'm told that they are converting into wine or something of the sort. We should be able to help. These are the things that should fall within the purview of the government's agenda on the supporting, startup businesses and all that. So I think that we should encourage some of these things. It will help eventually the country, it will help our economy, it will help our foreign exchange and all that. So
let me ask you this, partly because cashew is there's so much that can be done from it. The fruit can actually be used for some liqueurs and all of that. But since you're mentioning tomatoes, have you had tomato juice before?
Yeah, I have.
You have.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all have, right?
Yeah, we do.
You know, I mean, if you mention that here, a lot of people don't. Reminds me of that Osibisa song.
No, you see,
an awful lot of coffee in Brazil.
Of what
no tomato juice.
It's not juice. This is
right.
wine.
Wine.
Yes.
Right.
It's not juice. It's wine they're getting from the tomatoes, not juice. I mean, juice, we can all do that at the back of our kitchen and all that. That's not a problem. I can get
do you see any entity? That's the whole point I'm making. Do you see any entity producing tomato juice like locally in Ghana? That's my point.
Well, there are a few challenges, and I have to admit. You see, perishable goods, when it comes to their adding value, it's a different ballgame altogether. You know, when what's the name of this company that does the fruit juice around in Savannah?
Sky.
When Skyview came to Ghana, they're Blue Skies. They had a lot of challenges. It took them some time to really look at the preservation, the consumption level, how much do I produce, how much doesn't go into waste and all that. So indeed, government will have to support in some of this when it comes to production and in terms of perishables.
Right.
And so I'm not surprised, but we will get there someday. But a more conscious effort, led by government by itself, would help us to unearth some of these, new developments when it comes to production.
I don't know what the rest of you think, Vicky, because I'm thinking, particularly because we have these perishables, a lot of which rot on the market, that would be quite an avenue, right, to prevent some of these wastage or losses. You can actually get into those markets so that those that don't make it to the market, we could have a system where, okay, we can use some for juice, we can convert some into this, and in the end, they don't waste away.
Yes.
Any thoughts?
No, I like the innovation of turning it into wine. I mean, I haven't heard of that before, so it would be interesting to taste that. And also, in Rwanda, they have the regular tomato juice, and they also have tree tomato juice, which is interesting. So yes, we have to do something about our perishables. You go around Somanya Dodwa area during the mango season and you see them all rotting over there.
Yeah.
And we have to do better. I mean, we cannot afford, number one, that kind of wastage, and number two, zero kind of support to turn these things into something that can actually be commercialized.
Which also reminds me of the specific uses of cherry tomatoes, Amanda. All these varieties can be used for different things. And,
But I mean, I really agree with what Wanda said in terms of sometimes it is seeing what people or companies like Blue Skies have gone through in terms of it's taken years or, it took them a while to figure out how to preserve the juice, etc., and how much consumption is, and things like that. So if these other companies are starting, they shouldn't start from scratch, but perhaps take the market research, adapt it to their model in terms of wine is expensive, you know what I mean? So they're obviously aiming at a higher price point. And just learning lessons from Blue Skies in terms of preservation, even though it's a different, it's tomatoes and it's, juice and things like that. So we shouldn't start again from scratch. And it's great that if government is looking to support, Ghanaian initiatives like this, particularly because, people want to be innovative to take it globally.
All right. Vicky, would you like to do one paper? Then I'll get back to Wanda with his last paper and do yours as well.
Okay, sure. So the Today paper is the first one here. And the headlines are PPP demands independent audit into all special operations expenditure of intelligence funds from 2019 to 2024. Ghana's credit rating witnesses an upgrade from SD status to CCC plus status. And the GUTA story, which we've already done. And an interesting one here, Trump calls for 20,000 new officers to aid deportations. And he says that illegal aliens who stay in America face punishments, including significant jail time, enormous financial penalties, confiscation of all their property, garnishing of all their wages, imprisonment and incarceration, and sudden deportation in a place and manner solely of our discretion. So that is very draconian. So the two that I'd like to talk about are the call for there's the statement by the PPP's chairman, national chairman, on the misuse of intelligence funds and the need for accountability.
On the back of the NSB, former NSB bosses
situation. And I mean, I agree with that. You cannot do wrong and hide behind national security. We don't know the full details of the story. We've heard snippets of it, and then of course we've seen what is supposedly his own letter, etc., etc. And it's all very disturbing. I find it all extremely disturbing. If what we have seen is true, I don't understand how you can mix personal finances with national security finances or funds.
The point is made that this other bank account was known by the general security apparatus and that it was accepted and all of that. Because people have asked, how could this have been going on with the other intelligence agencies? It's coordinated. Someone must have known.
Exactly. And the role that UNB played in all of this. And how can you have your wife involved? I mean, as if saying that, oh, she was vetted, suddenly makes it okay. You know, so there are so many different areas of total opaqueness that I think that if we have something, I think that the audit is in order, the call for audit is in order, because as Ghanaian citizens and as taxpayers, we all want to know what is being done with our money. And there also has to be clarity. Okay. I mean, these funds are supposed to be audited anyway, and Parliament is supposed to have an oversight. It's not as if it's a carte blanche to do whatever you want. And wasn't someone punished for doing exactly the same thing or something similar, using national security funds to do something other than the purpose for which it was originally authorized? So we need to be careful, because
I think indeed there was something
they were
similar.
actually in prison. I think William Tavy or somebody. I can't remember.
There has been some precedent on that.
And then the second story is on this Trump call to aid deportations. I think that, you know, it's if you are in America at this time as an illegal immigrant, I think it's time to advise yourself. And even if you are not an illegal immigrant, maybe it's time to advise yourself anyway.
All right. Thank you for those quick thoughts. We have very limited time, so please go into your second paper briefly if you have any story you'd like to do there.
Oh, with me.
Before I go back to
there was one which I would have liked to have done, but the pages have been are not here. So.
Oh, okay. Which one is that?
Yahuta Maklo's new book raises questions about Rawlings's death, but from page 8 to 19, it's missing and it's on there. The rest of it is Mohammed's speech on his 120-day social contract. And then the expectation that a lot of MPP executives will be asked to step down.
Okay. Well, there is something in the book in respect of that. You can actually grab a copy of the book. It was launched on Wednesday. You can grab your copy and get those details if you're curious. Wanda, quick thoughts on your last news.
I'm particularly, excited about the Bonkra project.
Which paper is this? The Ghanaian publisher?
This is the Ghanaian publisher.
Right.
I understand Ghana's Shippers Authority have begun works, to resume works. It started somewhere in the 90s. 2003, President Kufuor tried to put it into focus, and then it suffered a lot of, financial inadequacy, and so the project came to a standstill at a certain point in time. But now, I'm told it's on course, and we should get that going. That will change the face of transport, logistics in the Ashanti region, which is supposed to be the central part, hub of our country, and all that.
Okay, so let me quickly get into my papers very, very quickly. Daily Graphic, disallowed expenditure, Auditor General recovers 12.7 billion Ghana cedis. Free passport delivery service commences. Resolve Ghana-Togo maritime dispute, that's according to Major General Kotia. On the back page, Amwes late header sends Kotoko to MTN FA Cup final, and Golden Kick make history with MTN FA Cup final berth. And if you watched the Classico yesterday, it was pretty interesting, wasn't it? A hat-trick for Kylian Mbappe, but not enough as Yamin Lamal and others ensured that Barcelona maybe secured the title by about 95+%. But let me do this story. The Office of the Auditor General has recovered 12.7 billion Ghana cedis out of 38.9 billion Ghana cedis disallowed expenditures flagged in audit reports between 2020 and 2023. This represents 32% of the amount flagged by the Auditor General to be disallowed and recovered for the period of the special audit exercise. The Auditor General's report indicated that the 12.7 billion Ghana cedis of the disallowed expenditure for the period was recovered from public boards, ministries, departments and agencies, technical universities, internally generated funds, pre-university institutions, and the District Assembly's Common Fund. You can get more details from the paper, which also reminds me of Daniel Odomelevo and some of the work he did before he had to step aside, because we are looking at 2020 to 2023. Then there's the story of the top Liberian doctor who has been struck out now. His issue is an interesting story. Rise above partisanship. President Mahama tasks National Peace Council. That story is on page 18. And then page 16, gas system on FPSO Kwame Nkrumah trips, cuts gas supply to Etuabo. And there's been talk about resolving this issue as well. In the Business and Financial Times, Cedi rally cutting foreign debt load as gold windfall, fiscal tightening and post-election stability bolster confidence. Cosmos Energy pledges $2 billion investment in petroleum sector, and government prioritizes trade standards. Ladies, gentlemen, any quick thoughts? And we'll be leaving. Amanda, starting with you.
I like that title, Rise Above National Partisan. You know, I think the nation thinking positively and working together collectively for a good purpose is better than division and negativity and bringing down other people. And with what was said about, you know, Trump's laws, I think it's a real shame, because America had at one point been at the forefront of establishing international norms and good things to happen, and yet this draconian policy is unfortunate. But above all, I mean, the prison system in America is $1 billion industry. So if you are saying that you're going to be imprisoning even people who haven't committed a crime per se, you know, but you could just deport them, it basically means you want to feed into even more of $1 billion industry.
Right.
And the labor of America is built of immigrants, as Trump knows, because that's how he built most of his hotels in America, with cheap labor. So it's very unfortunate, that policy. And I think, you know, the world looks forward to a new administration to just establish some sort of international norms.
All right. I've also just been prompted that the Chief of Staff has summoned Sammy Gyamfi over the cash gift to Adrada. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, so I already told you that there internally some, you know.
That was just by the side. Just go with your final thoughts.
Confirm that some work have, you know, begun on that matter, and we should see an end to that, you know, all in the benefits and the interest of Ghana as a whole. I think that Trump seems to have a lot of enemies all the time. But I'm an admirer of Trump. I believe in his energy to protect his own, his American dream. And it may not sound too good to everybody, which I think he knows, but he's still on his journey towards recovery of what he calls the Great America. So that said, the Finance Ministry, I want to ask for some support from them to sustain this dollar-CD debate.
Right. Point made. On Trump, all I can say is, you know that proverb, "Ifutu nsacha nipa, jensoshe." Vicky Bright, final words, and then we have to go.
Yeah, the one good thing about Trump, though, I mean, I don't agree with everything he does, but the one good thing is that I think it should, if it's not, focus Africa on its own development. Because that's the only way to prevent people just going out there, you know, these visa issues being turned down, going out there, disrespect, calling us the name that you said we can't say on air, you know, and all that. So I think Africa really is about time that we stood on our own ground. You know, this abolishing aid to Africa, I think it's you know, it really should help us to help ourselves, because we are the only ones who can change the course of our continent.
Right.
Yeah, and of course, I'm very happy about the stability of the city. And I commend the Finance Ministry for all the hard work they're doing in that regard. And I'm also happy that the Chief of Staff has called Sammy Gyamfi to have a discussion with him on this matter.
Right. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. We have to give way to sports up next. But those who joined us, Victoria Bright. Which do you prefer, Vicky Bright or Victoria Bright?
I've gotten used to both now. Those who went to school with me, those who have known me since I was a kid call me Victoria. And I guess those who have known me later call me Vicky. So I respond to
I think I'll stick to the Vicky. Vicky Bright. So Vicky Bright is a lawyer and entrepreneur. She's a legal practitioner, of course. Amanda Clinton is head of chambers of Clinton Consultancy. And Wanda Madilo is with the NDC's communications team. It's been a classic 4 matches won by Barcelona over Real Madrid, Los Blancos. But anyway, sports is coming up next. Muftar Nabil Abdullah will be telling you everything you need to know. We'll be right back.